just cold water, not too much. So I'm going to combine therapies right now, and one of them is just an example because I forgot. I think it was already mentioned. And you don't have to have cloths like this. You can use a sock or like a tube sock that doesn't have a heel to it. Is usually more comfortable. But what you do, like for this, like what your mom would do for you. My mom used to take a wool sock and she would fill it. She would take a long skinny bread bag and she'd fill that full of crushed ice and she'd put that inside the wool sock and pin it on, and I'd wear it to bed. But this works the same way, and what you do is you get this wet, damp, wring it out, you don't want it dripping, and then you get it cold. I stick it in the freezer for 20 minutes or so. And then, come on over here, honey. And what you do is you take it and you put it, and we're gonna be combining therapies here. So you take and you put, and when I say combining, as in you can do this by itself, and it'll work, but you can also combine it with another therapy. So so this would go on ice cold, and then you put the towel on top of it. And I have done this with like you say, you can use a sock or you can use something else, but you can think creative. Like I've seen people I've seen people take and put a scarf and they still went to wherever they were going to go. Nobody knew they had this on. Or a dickie, just put a long turtleneck with something on top. So they wore it during the day. And so this is for whenever you feel that tickle in your throat or a sore throat, laryngitis. Somebody has a book.
We found that it's best to start when you have that little bit of a tickle.
Yeah.
Because when it gets to be a sore throat, the treatment doesn't work as well because it's so far advanced.
Can you see if you find that on there? I think it's okay.
That part of it.
It's called the ice. No, it's called the heat
Part of
compress.
the therapy is.
Yeah.
Straighten out the teeth.
Well, most of the time, the patient.
Not always that cold.
We would do this same procedure on ourselves and our children when they were growing up. But we,
It's on page
in addition,
68.
when it was a cold, we would put menthol camphor on the throat
Thanks.
first.
Heating
And
compress.
yeah, it just kills the
And
cold.
heat compress?
Yep.
I know.
So just give us a second here. This is more. It's a little bit more wet than it should
Well,
be,
I
but
got
that's
you.
how you got it apart. So
Wow.
there you
Oh,
go.
my word.
Oh, baby. I thought you were going to put that around his neck.
That's cold, huh? Yes, it's frozen.
It's frozen. Ice cold. There you
A
go.
few years back, I had a cold, and it moved down into my chest. And it just coughed. Well, the power went out. We had no way of doing anything, and so we went over to a friend's house that had
Our friends have a lifestyle center.
lifestyle center. Thank you.
And the power went out, so we were staying there.
And so I just was coughing. She was downstairs. And she goes, gets a t-shirt, does this. Oh,
So like we're staying at a lifestyle center, and I can hear him coughing upstairs. I'm like, this is not
just-
cutting it.
it just
Below.
wouldn't come out.
So I went and got one of his t-shirts and made him do this. In 5
And
minutes,
Put me under about that many blankets.
he was sound asleep.
Yeah, I fell asleep, slept for about, I'm gonna guess after about 3-4 hours. Woke up, I was soaked
Drenched in sweat.
in sweat.
And that's a simplified version of the cold sheet treatment. I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. This one is a
and it's
specific,
already starting to heat up.
yeah.
Because
This
your
one-
body's going, what? Cold? Oh no! And so it's,
We're gonna make you pretty.
oh, I'm for the purge.
We're gonna make you pretty. You wanna put something on them that's comfortable for them to lay down in. This might not be all that comfortable because it's got like a hood, but, it's what I had.
Pepper's cold.
So what this does, when you put the plastic on, you're creating a barrier between him and the other clothes, so that it's contained inside. You want this procedure to be next to himself. And in the book, it'll show ways to pin it closer. So I try to get a t-shirt that's snug on them, but you can use their own stuff so that it's gonna fit them. And then, of course, the blanket, this keeps it so it doesn't get all the stuff wet. And then putting this on top helps pull it in, but it also helps with the temperature of the person. And then, so we did his neck, and this wasn't wet, but you can actually do it as a dry treatment as well. It'll do benefits.
Actually, I think you did both.
I did
Because
both neck.
I was,
I used a sock for his neck because I didn't have these.
but
these
it was
ones
still,
just-
would you dampen it or cold make it? I don't remember.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
But on there, and then, the next day after I got up, took my shower. I don't know, maybe had socks on.
Okay, he doesn't have
Um,
some.
I woke up the next morning and I did cough, but when I coughed, stuff came out.
Instead
My
of hurting.
lungs were clearing.
So I'm gonna have you stay here because you got that shirt a little bit wet.
Well, I had to get it on for
What,
No,
because
make
of the
it warm.
steeper warm?
Yes, and then he said he hasn't had his socks on. I thought he was ready. Where's your socks?
I don't have any socks, I didn't grab any
Okay.
socks, I ran out of time.
You want socks?
So another thing that you can do, either similar or at the same time, would be to put garlic oil on the bottoms of the feet, just the bottoms of the feet, and then cover that with socks, which we don't have the socks. Just-
And I think, you did that too.
I don't know if I had the garlic oil or not, but I could have done, you can do like this
You did
treatment,
something.
you can just get the socks wet, cold, put them on and put another layer of socks on top. Now, sometimes some people will put, a Walmart bag in between the two. Anybody that wants to go barefoot? Anybody wants to go barefoot? I need one more. You wanna do it? Okay. You do it? She said. What I've got here is a thing of cold water. And basically, we're gonna be doing this procedure right here. This is another good book. It's got lots of different water therapies in it. She has a couple other herbal books as well. Anyway, this is the therapy we are doing here. It's called cold water treading. Have you ever done this before?
Probably.
Okay, so what we're gonna have her do is, it's a simple water action every morning and evening, every day of your life. It is stimulating and energizing, increasing body tone, increasing circulation, and helps you to develop resistance to infectious diseases. That's what we're after, right? It is an excellent and important procedure for young and old alike. So what you'll do is immerse the feet in cold water up to the ankles or the calves. We're just doing probably ankles here. And move your feet in the water, so it's like you're walking around. So it goes on to say that, if you have somebody that can't stand it, if they can sit on the edge of the tub and splash their feet around, and then we'll just make sure your feet are good and dry. Okay. So something this simple, you might say, well, that's not so, it's not so hard to do, but what is it going to do for us? But it will tone the body. So I will stand next to you, and you can use my shoulder if you like. And just, let me get a towel first.
one thing we used to do a lot is walk around out in the snow a little once in a while, a little bit. Walk in the dew in the morning in the grass, if you got nice grass. We walk barefoot a lot. In the summer.
It's a similar type of procedure to do that in the dew. The addition of walking outside is that you're letting the excess electrical, like you get negative electrical from your computer and your screens and different things like that. Anything, things in your house, and you let that go. And I'm gonna let you use the video so you can just kind of walk.
Huh?
Water treading.
Water treading?
Water treading.
I know if you live by the ocean or something, it's good to walk in there. We don't do that.
There's
Just
a
walking in a cold stream.
Yeah, as kids, we did all that stuff in mud puddles and everything. Now we don't do
there's
that.
a hydrotherapist from years ago. I think around 1780s. I'm not sure. In Europe, he has a whole system still where people go to the clinic.
Too cold, my
And-
feet are aching.
We'll let you.
Is this something you should do every day?
Every day, you can do it like, you can just run in a little bit of extra water and, in the shower, you can step in that.
It's cold water, right?
And then we'll just,
Yes.
cold water. And then she's gonna rub her
We
feet,
can consider for foot
good,
washing.
good rubbing, and, making sure the feet are dry. Something that simple doesn't seem like a lot, but trust me, try it, do it. Try doing hot and cold showers. There's a wonderful benefit with that.
How do you
Another,
do hot and cold showers?
Huh?
How do you do hot and cold?
with the person, depending on you and what you can handle, you're gonna wanna do the hot water, and then, like, you could do the similar, like if you need to know a number, they usually do 3 to 30, like 3 minutes to 30 seconds. Al Wilson used to always say to make sure on the final one that you're not cooled off until the pits are cooled off. Because if those are still warm, then you could get chilled. So that was one of his recommendations. But you just get in the hot, get in there, and then you do the cold to end. Now, some people say at least 3 exchanges. They'll let you know, like, the book will let you know, like, how long, because heat expands and cold contracts, right? So when you get the hot, you're gonna have it expanding, and then you get the cold, it's gonna contract. This is gonna create a pumping action. So if you do it just once, you get 3 exchanges and you get this going, that will get the blood flow going. So another procedure that that's not really a procedure, but something I've learned about, I know that we need to have the oxygen, and the 8 doctors are sunshine, exercise, fresh air is one of them. So I've been trying to find something where you could do a good breathing without doing yoga. I found Wim Hof. I don't know if any of you guys have ever heard of him. He has like just a breathing tutorial that you can breathe with you, and it is. I know probably some people have done it for years. It could have even linked to some monk somewhere, but they leave out pretty much like any kind of, because God created the breathing, so I feel like I want to just do the breathing. But he does he'll do a breathing technique, and then he does cold treatment. He doesn't do hot and cold, he just does cold. And he set world records for climbing mountains and all kinds of stuff, but he's trained his body to like the cold and to deal with the cold. But he's found that the cold will actually boost our immune system and decrease inflammation. So people that are dealing with unexplained inflammation, a lot of times with autoimmune type diseases and they can't figure out what to do, I think that this would be an option for them to try. They start slow and work up to more and more. So,
That's what I need help in breathing.
so yeah, the Wim Hof, look it up on YouTube. I think it might be William or something, but it's just WIM space HOF breathing tutorial. It's simple, only takes a few minutes.
Helps you through a lot. When I was in the hot water for 3 minutes, that's the only thing that kind of kept me calm, was just steady counting.
Breathing, yeah, the counting.
Counting as I breathe.
Mm-hmm. So one other thing that's a simple remedy is things from your kitchen. So we already talked about how the onion can make the sinuses run and everything. One time my daughter had a really bad earache, and this has been a long time ago. I really felt for her because as a child I had some really bad earaches, and my mom had done some of the neck wraps and different things like that. But I thought, what would give her the relief the fastest? Because it was a very sharp pain for her, and I could tell because I had that same face myself. So I was like, what can we do? And I remembered the benefits of onion. So I thought, oh yeah, I've got that. And I went in the kitchen. I couldn't find an onion. I always had onions. I was like mad at my dog, no onions. But remember, the Lord provides a way of escape. So I said to my son, I said, go next door and see if they have any onions. And he came back with an onion that was about as big as a golf ball. And I thought, what? This isn't going to do any good. But I did it anyway, so I took a slice of the middle of that onion, and I put it on a paper towel, and I stuck it in the microwave just long enough to get warm. And I took it out of the microwave, and when I had cut that onion, tell you what, that was the strongest onion I think I had ever smelt in my tongue, because you just cut it, and I was like, and I put it on the thing, and I put it in the microwave, and it was warm, and I put that on her ear, and you could have counted to 10, and she stopped screaming, and she stopped, and she's like, this is good, and her face went from to, she's like, the
Put it on
pain.
the actual ear.
I just took it
Paper towel.
on the paper towel, I laid it right on her face. I didn't want to burn her or anything, but it had been in there long enough to get warm, so there was a little bit of moisture there with that, and I laid it there on her ear, and there was enough to do more than one treatment, and then I found some other things to do for her to take internally. I always like to try and come at a problem from every direction you didn't think of, inside, outside, any direction. Because if we're not more aggressive than the disease will win. So you got to remember that. You can't just kind of, I had 1 cup of that, it didn't work. Come on, do better than that. So anyway, I found out later when I talked to my neighbor, she had grown that onion in her backyard that was from her garden, and that was the last onion in her house.
Wow.
Oh my, God is good. So, you can take an onion and chop it up in little pieces, which I'm not going to do right now, and put it on a plate next to your bed and breathe it overnight, and it'll help kill the things that you're breathing. It'll help with strep throat and different types of infection that you can maybe think that you're already catching. And so just cutting it up, putting it on a little plate. Now in the morning, that plate goes in the trash with the onion. The paper plate. No, you don't serve that later because it's been collecting stuff all night long. And that's one of the things you need to watch out when you do go out to eat. Onions that have been sitting out all day, maybe not a good idea. because other people, because it draws stuff from the air into the onion.
And a salad bar.
Yeah, you might want to skip the onions when you're out. And after they've been cut open, try to use them up. Like whenever you go to use an onion, you need an onion, check and see if there's one in the fridge you cut open already early in the morning, because you don't want to keep them too long, because they'll pull things, from their air around them. And if it's that potent, it's going to pull things for, to be beneficial for you, because you're going to get in what it's giving, and it's going to take out, help purify the air.
Also, that works like an internal poultice if you take a lot of onions and you cook it and use the water and everything like a onion soup, onion poultice, and it works like a poultice inside of you. Pull it out and eliminates.
One of the simple things to do for a child that's usually non-invasive is a simple onion poultice, like they have a respiratory or cough. This is, maybe if they won't sit still for hydrotherapy, maybe you could do the whole thing with the umbrella, but then you can also take and chop up your onions, and you bake them in a dish until they get kind of caramel, well, not caramelized because you're not putting them on that type of heat or adding an oil, but they just get soft. And then you can take and put that in a cloth, and put, usually little ones, they have like onesies or whatever, and if you put that underneath, and it'll stay right in place. Another thing with children, especially for the treatment I did on Tony earlier, and for things like this, take their own like pajama pants, those soft little things, right? Put them on them upside down, and then take the feet and wrap them around and come back with it. You got a little pocket there for the onions, and you pin the feet in place, and it stays right in place because it's their size. Wonderful. So whenever you're doing treatments on children, use their clothes, and not just their shirts, but their pants as well. If they're cloth, simple pants, so it works well. You put it on, the legs go over, around, and come back to here, and you have that little pocket, so that's wonderful. So the other thing you can do with the onion is to make a lovely cough syrup. So to make the cough syrup, you'd want to chop up your onion. And everybody asks me how much. It depends on the size of your onion, how much cough syrup you need. Those are the things. So you chop up an onion, and I like to put it in, you can put it in a double boiler, or you can put it in a slow cooker. I've got a little tiny crock pot. Sometimes I throw it in there because I'm busy, and I'll just want to let it do its thing, and I'll come back to it. But you basically put enough honey over the onion. So if you chop up the onion, you don't want the onion spread out. So you got your dish, you chop up the onion, so you're going to put enough honey over the onion to cover the onion. So as long as your onion is in there nicely, not bits and pieces all over, So you chop it up, and then once it's heated, and you get the properties of the onion into the honey, and you strain it out, it'll be like there's more honey than there was before. What you're getting is all the juices from the onion, and then your honey is going to be a little bit more syrupy than honey, which is perfect for cough syrup. And once you pour that off, you can add a little bit of lemon juice, a tiny bit of cayenne pepper to bring the circulation to the throat, and you can put in some crushed garlic at that time, or some garlic oil that you might have made up ahead of time. It's a wonderful cough recipe, and I had some in the fridge, and I had made up some, and I had used it, and I didn't need it, and I just left it in the fridge thinking, if that should keep. I went back to get it, and it's like, what happened to my cough syrup? And Bradley, my son, smart aleck, just like his daddy, he says, oh, I added some Bragg's to that and made sweet and sour sauce. It was perfect. I was like, what did you do? And I tasted it. It's like perfect sweet and sour sauce. So you can multitask there. Like, this is going to make me well, and next week we're having sweet and sour.
That, so you chopped up the onion and you cooked it a little bit, that's what you're saying?
In the honey, you just slow cook it. You can do it directly on the burner. It's probably better to do it like in a double boiler because you're not gonna, cook
And
it
then
too
after
much.
it's cooked, you threw the honey in?
You just pour the honey off the onion,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got a cough syrup. And then you
Okay.
can add a little bit of lemon,
Okay.
a little bit of cayenne pepper, according to you, how much cayenne pepper. But I definitely recommend the cayenne pepper because it will bring the blood to the area and make it so that it really works well.
Thank you.
So some people will put a lot of cayenne pepper in there. Some
Honey
people
comes with the
don't.
But it says in the name, hot too.
Put the onion in.
Well, because it's in honey,
Yeah,
not so
that's-
much. You have to
that's
put
what
quite a
I'm
bit in there for it to get hot because you're dealing with honey.
Okay, okay.
So, but there's, to
Well, honey insulates the heat.
yeah, very much so. And then we like baked garlic at our house, so we'll take a thing of garlic and I'll put it in my small cooker and I'll pour a little olive oil over it. Well, the last batch we did, there was a lot of oil left over, and so I just bottled that, strained it and bottled it. So I usually keep this in the fridge, so I have garlic oil ready. Now, this might not be as potent as just pouring it over fresh garlic cloves. So you take a jar, you peel the garlic, fill it up, and then pour oil over it and let it sit out for a couple weeks, and you've got some really nice garlic oil. This was done
What
by
would you
cooking
use
it,
it
so
for?
it might not keep as long and it might not have as many good properties to it, but we love it too.
What or how would you use the garlic
The garlic
oil? What would you?
anytime you need to fight off infection or anytime you like garlic oil with your
You
cooking.
drink it?
No, well, like we would have put it like on the bottom of our feet, or we would have used it medicinally. You can put it like when you do that onion poultice for a child. A lot of times you put a little bit of oil on first so that it's not too hot on them, and a garlic oil. Depending on the child, like if they're a really light skin, you might want to just use oil, olive oil. But usually garlic oil goes a long way to fight off infection. And then use it in your food, your dressing, a little bit of that on some salad and stuff like that.
My sinus infection, maybe rub it in my sinus area?
Yeah, you can do that. Rub a little on your chest instead of some Vicks. Put it on the bottoms of your feet and then put some socks on and go to bed before bedtime.
Does it make a difference if your garlic's cut up versus just the whole clove?
I've seen people do it either way. They'll chop it, like they'll run it through a chopper. Now, if you want some real potent, that you're trying to get somebody, they really need some stuff real quick, run it through the juicer. I have garlic juice. You don't have very much for the garlic, but that's really strong stuff. But if you're making like a formula, putting together something, you can put garlic juice in with something else. It's really strong in that way.
Garlic squeezer,
Yeah.
press,
Yeah,
and he breaks it all up and you get all the juice out fast.
What Carissa would have us do, she showed me, is to make a garlic tea, because we were fighting off a cold,
mm-hmm.
and she says, don't let the water come to boil, but don't let it cool for a little bit, because if you put the garlic into boiling water, it kills the antibiotic
Yeah, you don't wanna boil
antiviral
it.
properties.
So you don't wanna
And
boil
then she put some honey and
Once you get one thing, like you feel like it's working well, but you're still not getting better, add something else. Just keep adding something else.
Ginger helps.
We have, we're supposed to see all 8 doctors every day, right? So if you skip one or the other, then, because I've heard of like one of my teachers, he would have people that would come in that he was treating and they were sort of doing better, but they still wouldn't, and he's like, well, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Yes, I'm doing that. Yes, I'm doing it. Are you doing the hot and cold showers? No, I can't handle the cold. Okay, I'll do the hot and cold. They come back, I'm fine. It's like, all they did, 2 or 3 days of adding all of the things he told them to do, and, so try to add as many things as you can. Do we have any questions? Okay, so one of the things I want to let you guys know is some sources of information, and we have some samples. We have the bulk herb store tea that's out there. Tony's got it and some pictures. This is the herbal C tea, so it's like vitamin C, good to boost the immune system right here. And then the other one is raspberry leaf tea, and that is also very good for boosting the immune system. It's a good source of iron. Dr. Christopher used to say, if you know, he knew of a case where this family was coming down with stuff. He said the lady came to him with some desperation, and he thought the desperation was the fact that all those little kids in the family, and they only had one bathroom. And they knew that there was a thing going through town that was sending them to the restroom with diarrhea. So she's like, what can I do? One of the kids, or two of the kids, came home with it. He's like, don't give them any food, give them nothing but raspberry leaf tea. So he started the ones that came home with just the raspberry leaf tea, and then she was making the rest of them drink it, but not as much as those two. Real quickly, I think by the end of the day or the next day, they were fine, and the other kids were fine, and back to school they went, and she was happy that all 6 or 8 kids or whatever it was weren't sick at the same time. So he recommended that one for, but he said to not eat or anything else, just do the tea, just do the cleansing, just keep it simple. And so that's the other one that we have. Raspberry leaf tea is good for regulating hormones. When my son was a teenager, starting to get, his voice started changing. First couple of times his voice was changing. I thought he was sassing me because I was detecting the difference in the tone of voice. And he had a cousin that was older than him that his voice had been cracking for a long time, and I was like, okay, we're gonna address this. So I started having a lot of raspberry leaf tea. It tastes very much like your Lipton iced tea, only it doesn't have the caffeine, and so a lot of people do appreciate it as a substitute. And so we had a lot of that, and I also went to the store and bought some herb. And I came home to my son, I was like, now you're going to be offended to take this because I found it in the women's section. He goes, no, because he'd been watching the videos, remember? So he knew that it was going to be good for him. So he took that, and his voice changed, and then he has a nice deep voice. And I remember going over visiting his cousin and still cracking it up and down and all over the place, and he'd been at it for a couple of years, and my brother was done with it. And I attribute that to the hormones that it, basically a lot of these plants, they don't necessarily have the things in them. They do maybe a little bit, but they have the precursors, so your body makes it yourself in the amount that you need for you. So he was good with that. So that's the other tea. Which one's which, honey?
The green one is the Urban Sea. The purple is the raspberry leaf.
So this one came from the bulk herb store. They have several different combinations of herbs and single herbs. It's a good. It's online, and I feel like it's a good source for tea. I've liked them, and they've been actually purchased by a new source, but I know the source, so I feel like they're going to keep their quality standards high. And the other source,
All the herbals.
the bulk herb, you can pass this around with people look at it.
Where's that located at?
I'm not sure where they've been purchased by Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds. Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, which is in Missouri, but I think they're located in Tennessee.